So one of the things we fail to develop is a hunger for knowledge. We got it, like you said, you got to have a hunger for knowledge, right, Tom? You got to look at that hunger for knowledge. You got to look and try to not settle on what you've done, but better yourself.
I've taken 3 or 4 courses this year alone.
Yeah.
I continue to learn. I learn something for every class I go to.
I learned by mistakes.
I try to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
So
They said they're cheaper to learn from someone else's mistakes. But we don't develop a hunger for knowledge in our industry. You just tell them to get certified. We don't give them enough reason to show up for class. And they got all the reason in the world to show up, don't they? We just don't give them. So they got to develop a hunger for knowledge. You got to stretch yourself, right? The guy behind you, I love him like a son. He was in one of my first classes 20 years ago. Great job. He's grown a lot because he strives. If you don't strive, you don't grow. It's not an egotistical thing. You got to grow. They get a lot of this stuff. I'm not good enough to learn that stuff. I had a guy show up in class in Northridge in a supply house, and he shows up for a CCT, a carpet residential, and he goes around, he's joking, he's laughing, big guy, he's laughing, he comes in, he said, I can't learn this. It's my ethical background. We're all a bunch of dummies. And he was serious but laughing. I said, why would you say that? Who taught you that? I said, you're going to go as far as you allow yourself, but some people can't learn. I get that, We're going to be offering a series in the next year we're teaching people who have learning disabilities in our industry, because no one addresses it. So we're building a series for that. But that's different.
You need to contact me about that. I speak sign language.
Do you? So does she. So does my wife. See, you want to talk to her, I'll give her this one.
No. But I have a son who's got a learning disability.
So does she. So does she. My daughter is a special ed teacher. So we feel uniquely blessed to have unusual situation to be able to address a need that's not being addressed. So we're starting with custodial, working our way to carpet. And these people, if they can do something greater, earn more money, I think we're cheating if we don't tell them. I think we owe them that. Hello, dear. You got nothing better to do. So part of it is the mindset. It's the belief that's self-limiting. We see this, right? And the reality that they can do, but they don't realize it. They can do so much more. You know why Melody may have a problem filling classes? And she's a first-rate instructor. She does dye courses. You know what it is? Men don't have patience. True, right? I tried that. I bought this dye kit. I spilled the red dye all over a red carpet, made it redder. It was fun getting it out. It wasn't your kit, though. That's why it didn't matter, right? No, it probably was. But the point is, if they don't have a mindset, they won't do it. You gotta relax and you practice on stuff,
Practice is everything.
Everything. I get a lot of this. We don't clean that. And it's a closed mind situation. Understand, you've got a business plan, right? Jimmy's extremely successful. They have a great plan. Most people don't do that. They don't know what they're good at. You have to take enough into the magazines and these shows to see something that kind of tickles you right. Maybe that's good. And try to invest a minimal amount to see if it's something you should add on, because sometimes adding it on. I talked to a young man last night. He's going 100 miles an hour, doesn't listen to anything, but he wants me to train him. He has that personality. He's very Eastern. He has that strong will. And he said, now I'm going to get into duct cleaning. I said, you haven't even learned how to clean carpet yet. You've already bought all the equipment. Well, now he wants to get into duct cleaning. Blinders. You got to focus. Get good at one thing, right? These guys are good at least 3 things. You've got to have at least 3, because one's going to slow down, but they should feed into each other. In the old days, we used to say you learn carpet cleaning, fabric, and carpet repairs were the big 3. Most people won't repair a carpet. It's much easier. You don't have to knee kick it, but you can do a lot of, just do bonded inserts.
Power stretcher.
Power stretcher, baby.
Knee kicker is made to move the carpet that much.
That's right. I know. I almost lost my knees over it. I got real good at a power stretcher without using a knee kicker. I quit on the company that does the world's largest builder, the 2 largest builders in the world. They're in California, and I quit on them, and they were treating me like, I love them. They're great people. I was afraid to damage my knees. So they doubled what they were paying me to make me stay, because they can't find a person. And every call's like $400 or $500 for something small, because they can't nobody wants to work. I'd rather they give it to somebody but I'm grateful, right? So whatever that is, this is wool, and that's kind of a bleached out travertine, but you can tell if they see something, they don't know enough to turn it, why they're turning it down. Keep with your business plan. I love this. One of my favorite stories, I had a guy working for me that was in your class, I think, years ago, Bill Cutts. Bill was a subcontractor for me, cleaning for 9 years. And Bill later caught leukemia, fought it, and eventually lost his battle. But when he was he went through a heart issue, so I cleaned some of his customers for a while. We cleaned each other to help each other, to kind of feed his family a little bit because he couldn't work. And I go in this house, and this guy had a family room by about 20 by 20. That's a family room. And he had everything he'd ever shot of the heads hanging on every wall. He'd been 100 different trips to Africa. And I look in the corner, I'm cleaning the carpet, and I look at it, and here's a real giraffe stuffed. Who has a stuffed giraffe? And it went all the way up, look up, and there's no head on it because the ceiling didn't allow the head. And they couldn't piece it together because, with the width, the head. I'm looking, wow, who cleans a giraffe? So I asked a class in Baltimore once, I said, who cleans a giraffe? What do you charge to clean a giraffe? Well, what if it's in a fire? How does an adjuster say, you lost your stuffed animals that mean a lot to you, they're real heads. Is he going to pay you to go out to a safari? Because a lot of those are protected species, and a lot of people don't like you shooting them anyway, right? But he had them. But you want to restore those. You clean them like wool, right? Just a wool carpet. So what? One of my students had a great answer. He said, you charge them by the spot. I thought, oh man, you nailed it, baby. Of course, she's in there going, I can make those spots red if you want to add a little this, And Melody goes, I can make it look like the old Twister game. We have little blues and red spots everywhere, Also, the other thing too, this Persiatic rug is the oldest rug in existence. Many of you know it. You've seen it in magazines. It was found hanging in a cave in Israel. It's a 45-year-old rug, 4,500-year-old rug. It's the oldest carpet or rug in existence. And you imagine how fragile that is and all the bugs and flowers that went in there to squeeze the dyes out? You wouldn't know nothing about that, dear. You're into big synthetic stuff, right? But I said, I want to clean that the last day that I clean. Because I have Owen Chambers as an insurance agent. He's in our industry. He's the best guy, Driscoll & Driscoll Insurance you'll ever have, right? I love him. But I want to put that insurance claim. If it's going in, it's going to be on the last day of before I retire. But I want to survive and clean that. It's a challenge. Just the fact to clean the oldest thing. Years ago, in the early 1980s, Mayflower Moving Company won a contract to move the golden collection on all the heads of the King Tut thing. And remember that? On the Mayflower vans, it says, we moved the treasures of a king. What was that worth? So I'm saying, we got to have a vision, right? We got to go past the norm. Norm is safe, but the big money is getting better. So they limit their services. I get a lot of people who just clean carpet, but they don't clean tile. Or they clean stone, but they won't clean tile because they think it's lower. Or they won't clean the carpet, so they slop the carpet. You got to have a connection there where the starts and the finishes are. You got to have that connection to a point, right? And I get people who sub out the other work. That's good, but there's never stopping when you start cleaning because you never know what you're going to run into, and you can't cover everything, right? But you get the masters done. You go watch limiting your growth, limiting your sales, loss of existing customers because they go somewhere else. That happens too. Okay, retool yourself in your business. You got to watch what you're doing. Lack of craftsmanship. You've honored this one because when you do it right, and you stand by it. That's what our industry doesn't want to do. When a customer hires Jimmy or somebody else that's good, you guys got to know that they're your last one they're ever going to have. I tell every customer who calls me because they've been gold to me. But I've been on referrals for 46 years. And it's all I do, and it's all I want to do. I don't deal with the public, but I shouldn't have to. Neither should anybody else. When they have you, for me, it's a lifetime relationship. I tell them up front on the phone, I'm in it for the long term. When I'm sub, it's different. But when it's a direct customer, I have them for life. I invest in them, and I want to have them for life. So I'm going to stay until the job's done the way I want it. So I don't want them calling anybody else because they couldn't get it done. Raise the bar. With pride and workmanship, there needs to be more of that. There's a big separation in this room. This is the cream of the crop because these are the people who show up to learn. That's why I have a different respect for people here than I don't. I don't mean they can't afford it. They just don't show up. I've taught in Las Vegas for 20 years. I've had accounts here. The world's second largest privately owned carpet cleaning company started here. He started with a portable. And he talked to Hilton Corporation because he had an uncle who worked for them, and he went to Laughlin to clean the thing and talked to him, and he was a big company. He had a typewriter and a portable, and he got Hilton to hire him as a big company. He had the Las Vegas Hilton for 16 years. His company grew to $23 million a year in carpet cleaning. He was doing the airport. You can do this. He did it with a portable and a typewriter. They used to be before, the old things. You got to live on your reputation. They don't know what this is. If you scrub hard, it might come clean. Why are we working for the chemical companies? They're making enough money. And if something doesn't work, we have a right to know why it doesn't work. They don't make those adjustments. You knew Carl Williams, didn't you? Yeah, I worked for him for 16 years. I was his prototype. If he hadn't died of a heart attack on me, I would have been there. I talked to him the night before, and I'm like, jeez, I lost my buddy. But I got that hard training. He did this. This was his deal. So when you have temperature, you got to be able to clean equally well with hot water as you do in cold, and vice versa. I know there's a big drop-off, but the customer needs to get it clean. So if you show up with a cold water portable, this has to be mixed well, that has to be increased, and that's going to be increased.
The cleaning pie.
Right, the pie. We owe them that as ethical to build it, to make things look new or best we can. If we're short of water, it's not the customer's always fault, right? I didn't tell them to live on the 18th floor of a high-rise, right? But we have to be as efficiently to try to get the same results, and that's a challenge. It's easier said than done, but our goal should be that. Chemistry boo-boos, not allowing enough dwell time. What's dwell time? They don't. They spray the pre-spray and they start cleaning. Well, yeah, sometimes you can do that. Probably a hard floor, but give it time.
Agitation and dwell time is imperative. That's why I say horsehair brush for the upholstery.
Yeah. I believe very strongly, and I say this with care and respect, that's the most overrated and that's the most underrated. When you have temperature, everybody loves you. You love yourself. It's great, right? I love it. I'm 100%. But I always say, here's the example. If you take your standard white van, we got one right here, standard white van, right? It's muddy, you haven't cleaned it in a long time, right? We all try to keep our vans up because the customer sees them, right? Number two is your vacuum cleaner, for crying out loud. It's got to be kept clean. Makes a big difference. A little Armor All, Windex goes a long way in a vacuum cleaner, trust me, they see it. You take that van, it's full of mud, it's been washed, it's been coated with water, it's dirty, right? And if you take it to a car wash, right, a self-serve car wash, take the hose, it doesn't have to be high pressure, you can do this at home, and just spray it with water. Do you get a lot of soil off? You get a lot of soil off, right? I'm not saying all, you get a lot of it off, because you get a flow of water. It's cold, right? Well, that's about how much soil we get off by vacuuming, right? Roughly, right? Go along with me here. Just to say, yeah, you got it, right? But if you did the next step, you left it wet, and now you took a pump sprayer and you sprayed the pre-spray on there, right? Which we do, right? Let it sit for a little bit, right? And then you wash it off. Is it going to be cleaner? Yes. Is it going to be real clean? Why?
You left out agitation.
Because you left out agitation. So if you sprayed it with rug shampoo, because the paint's actually pretty durable, right? We want to use a traffic lane booster, but we'd be fine. We spray it down, it dries off, and we go like this. You know your finger's going to be dark gray because it didn't come off the paint. But the agitation, and here you did it with no temperature. So agitation is that thing.
But if you had hot water, it would be easier. You would require less agitation.
Exactly, 100%. So we don't allow detergent. We're mixing deodorizer and detergent. You're mixing a cationic and an anionic. You can't do that. So I tell cleaners, use the deodorizer first, take care of the odor while it's under control, and then clean it. They try to mix it. There's nothing wrong if you get the right deodorizer, mix it with the right detergent, but you have to get that from the chemist who made it, not yourself. But that not only voids nylon warranties, it creates other issues. You ever had colloidal gel show up on a carpet? It's great. The whole carpet feels like it's got jelly on it. It's great. Negative anionic detergent and a lot of hot water in a couple hours, you'll be fine. after you've already cleaned it. So insufficient rinsing and flushing, very common. A little too fast, not enough slow dry passes. Okay. Another chemistry boo-boos is, this was real big to me, is I called out the 2 top selling cleaning product in our industry verbally and publicly at a convention here in Las Vegas about 10 years ago. They made a mistake of putting me on the podium. I know both the reps very well. One's a 30-year friend, and I respect both of them, okay? So I didn't look at them. So I said, okay, you have a truck mount or a portable, right? And then you run a detergent through this. They go, yeah, your detergent, right? Okay. So as it runs through the heater, is it at maximum heat? It's going to cool off. We all know that. Nothing to hide, right? But the detergent you're running through there, is it designed for the kind of heat setting that you have it set at?
Depends on the cloud point of the chemistry.
Correct. Here's the problem. It's not on the bottle. Think about that.
Oh, I know.
I love the 2 of them. They're great people, and they're good family people. And they looked at each other and went, I had to look in this corner because I didn't want to press room. I'm honored to my friends, but I don't want to do that. But I told them, don't tell me you've got 1 million bottles pre-printed, because you're going to run out. You need to tell us how hot you can get that water in that solution, because if that chemical works 50% or not at all, and you're running a detergent through it because it's hotter than it should be, and you're the chemist who made it, why wasn't that heat setting put on the bottle? Anything under 200? You know, ChemSpec was a major chemical for Forefront for years before ProChem passed them. Then now they're the same company. And ProChem is a public story, doesn't hide. Because I work for ChemSpec. I work for both schools. I've worked for both of them. In fact, ChemSpec gave me my big break years ago, and I have an affection for the brand. But they had, Formula 90 is the biggest selling detergent we've ever had in our industry. It's the Tide of laundry detergent. We have Formula 90. And they started getting calls from people around the country who don't know each other, who were hot water extracting with their truck mounts with Formula 90, and they weren't getting any results. And they came to corporate, and corporate was good enough to say, well, I don't know. So they started looking in the raw materials, maybe the settings. It turns out the product was not designed for the kind of heat when it was first developed, but they never adjusted the amount. It's just a public information. So for their credit, they came up with a high heat tolerant detergent, because whatever that setting was, it could have been 160, 180. These guys were cleaning at 220, and it was making a big difference on their workability detergent because they were never told it would tolerate that kind of heat. And the progress had passed, and all of a sudden typewriters weren't available anymore. They had not caught up with the whole thing. And to their credit, they did that, and other people would say, that's a good idea, we better do that too. My argument is it should be on every bottle, right up front. I know I argued over the pH for years. We finally got them to do that. And I've been arguing over the heat setting for years, because I don't think it's fair when you buy something through there and it's not working and you're spending money and all they have to do is tell you. You shouldn't have to call the chemist. It should be right on the bottle. Maximum heat usage is this. Then if they're too dumb to read the label, that's fine, but put it in the label. I said, I don't care if you scotch tape it on there, put it on there.
Same with your hydroforce. They used to stamp the maximum heat setting on the hydroforce.
Yes.
Valve.
Yes.
Now they don't.
I'm second generation in this major part when the industry grew. Mike West, Carl, some of us are ahead of me. I'm second. Most of you may first, or second, and they're third, and other people fourth. When the next generation ahead of us came in with enzymes, they were starting to heat them up through the sprayers. So you think a hot enzyme would work great, and they weren't designed over 140, and they're cooking them at 220. So that was, I understand the innovation, but they weren't set either. A lot of those enzymes now are very high heat tolerant, which is great, but they weren't allowed then. All my arguments, when you buy a bottle and you're going to run through the heater, you should know how hot that should get. You have a right to know that so the chemicals work to their efficiency, and you should challenge them on that. Take it from Mr. Big Mouth, okay?
Oh, I agree.
All right. So not working very smart. You're working for the equipment. Is the equipment working for you? Should be working for us, right? Right? The major workability should be with that equipment. If it's not working well, there's something wrong. The ergonomics of cleaning. When you're standing up cleaning, your extraction, what's my back doing right now? What's my wand doing? My wand's doing the work. Where's my back? What's my back doing? It's nothing. Why should my back get involved? Why should my back get involved? Let your arms do the work. The chemicals got to have time to work, and we got to work in the clock. You got to give it time. I get a lot of cleaners tell me around the country that they don't want to let the pre-spray sit too long because they're in a hurry. And they're going to stand there basically and watch it. And Mark, you got to be kidding. No, if you set it right and you put the pre-spray down and people aren't going to walk and break their neck on the carpet, tabs can be put in the furniture, blocks can be put down, grakes and groomers can be put in, the wand can be set in. You've already pre-vacuumed, some of the stains can be treated all the time while the pre-spray is working. Otherwise, you keep working, you just shift what you're doing because you got to make that chemical work for you. You don't wear your body out. Let the chemicals do that. I've done that with pre-sprays, and you wait the 20 minutes that they tell you versus 3, and it's a night and day difference how the soil comes out. Okay, well, I thought that item was they don't fiber ID, very common. The class I did here a couple hours ago, I asked everybody, it must have been 30 people standing, I think 4 people could fiber ID. That's real common, real common. Assuming precondition, a lot of people don't realize that they assume stuff like nap reversal and other things. It's not their fault. They find out after they clean it, not a problem. So all you gotta do is take a spray bottle and mark it pH, and you put pure water, like drinking water is great, it's fine, it's good enough. Just don't drink out of it and pour it in there, because we get thirsty because we eat and clean a lot, right? We eat and clean, we drink and eat profession when you clean, don't you? You put the water in the bottle, put pH, get a Q-tip, just spray the moisture on the carpet in the worst traffic pattern, put the Q-tip on it and touch the paper to it. And you can tell instantly what they've done to the carpet, someone else ahead of you. Very strong, okay? One of my earlier students in the 90s was a great gentleman, really nice cleaner, great guy, loved him. And he came into a carpet that was about $30,000 worth of wool carpet in a 2-story house. And the woman didn't hire the other cleaner back because she didn't like him. She said the work was good, but he didn't like him. So she hired this guy. Well, he didn't do any tests. He cleaned it as usual. He cleaned it with all the right products. And he calls me up crying. I said, what's the matter? He goes, well, I cleaned it wall to wall. I moved everything, and it all turned dark brown. It was a light brown carpet. What happened? I said, well, you got existing residue on the bottom of the carpet. The other cleaner had used an 11.5 pH carpet on wool, and all the solution sat down the bottom. It dried okay, but when he came back later, he wet it and it drew it all to the top. Now he was looking like he was live when he didn't do it. So he rinsed it out with an acid of the entire house. It got better. Another stronger acid got better. Now she wanted to replace the carpet. He had no insurance. He was between coverage. So I went down and helped him out. I told the woman what happened, and because I could tell, because I represented ChemSpec. It was one of their products. I knew him because I taught for him. And we dropped the pH down to about 2.5. It was way down there, and it fixed it almost all the way, and she went after him for cash. And I ran into him about 6 months later, never heard what happened, and he said, I gave her $1,000 to make her stop calling me, and she wrote it off. I had to give her cash. It wasn't even his fault. The cleaner left a lot of residue in there. High alkaline. We're ready. So again, take pride in the workmanship and be a good craftsman. I want the public to respect us more because I think we're greatly underpaid. We're greatly underpaid. We provide a much more valuable service than people think. We really do. We do all the jobs a lot of people don't want to do, and look at the results. Look at the value we're giving people by making carpets and other things last longer. I've had people that are going to replace it say, why don't you just clean it? You get another 6 to 8 months out of it. You can, for 6 to 8 months, make a $200 or $300 deposit in your savings towards your next carpet. That way you can buy something better, and this is what you should look for, and then recommend the type of carpet they should use. If it's tri-Exner, not polyester, but tri-Exner nylon, if it's synthetic, big difference of quality. And they can buy something that you recommended. Because some of the best mechanics to talk to, you ever buy a car that's newer, talk to a quality mechanic. They can tell you what's wrong and what's right about them, and you should be able to do that when you recommend flooring, okay? Because you want to have that customer for life, okay? Thanks for listening. We're good.